Hey, good morning everybody, and welcome back to the channel. As you can see, typical gray, but very bright actually. Even though I cannot see the sun, I'm producing really good power. No issues there whatsoever. And I've got a long-awaited review to get to you today. And we're gonna head up to the Bungalow and see what kind of progress I've made. It's challenged me quite a bit and continues to challenge me. So we'll see what I figured out and go from there. So here we've got the Calpha 48 volt Solar Charger Inverter, 3,500 watts. This is one of the all-in-one systems that will eliminate all of these components in a typical 48 volt system. So it's got the inverter, it's got a charge controller, it's got breakers, all in one. And we'll take a peek at the bottom of it here. You can see AC in, AC out, an on-off switch, lots of COM ports and other ports that we'll get to, battery in and out there, couple of fans, solar connection there. And we'll go over all of these connections here when we get up to the shop. And on the top you just have two mounting screws. There's nothing for the bottom, but this just hangs on your wall with two screws. And then after removing this bottom plate, it will expose some very simple, straightforward connections to be made on this. Pretty easy. Got your AC out here. Back in there, you've got your battery cables. It is positive on the left, negative on the right, and then you've got your solar panel PV input right here. They did include a couple of extra screws here for that bottom plate in case you lose those. They're very small, so nice they've got an extra set just in case. And besides those two little black screws as extra, you've got a couple of battery cable lugs and a couple of extra bolts there. Came with these cables as well, so you can tie another unit into parallel. You can tie up to 6 of these units in parallel. So there's that for that. Some more communication wires there. And also came with some really nice 7-gauge cables here with ferrules on both ends where you could tie up a generator or up to the grid so you can, charge up your batteries that way as well. And I will say that this is really ideally meant to be hooked up to one of the server rack style batteries, which Alpha does have, and it's probably even more designed for their specific battery. But you do have some adjusting parameters in the interface to hook it up in a different way, which is of course what we're doing today. And if you've been following this channel, you know for the past couple of weeks at least, I've been preparing for this by creating my own 48 volt battery with 3 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphates tied in series together. Been watching this, put a balancer on it, everything's looking good. So we've got the AC out tied right there, and I've just got it hooked up to this for some demonstration purposes. We've got the solar in, and we've got the battery cables hooked up, so we're good to go. But yeah, if you were using a server rack style battery, all those other lines that I showed you would really come into play. The battery would communicate with this charger inverter. but we don't have that available, so we're going to do the best we can with this and see how it works, and then we'll also see how this battery configuration works in the test as well. So now we're ready to turn this thing on. It does have an input breaker on the side, and the switch, on-off switch, is down here, and we're going to flip that on right now. I've got the PV ready to go, but at the moment it's not tied in, but we will tie that in momentarily. So there it is. The display has now come on, and it takes it a minute to, get everything showing what the voltage is, load, etc. Takes it just a moment. There it comes. Reading the battery at 53.1 volts, which is accurate. I just tested the battery on the multimeter, and that is accurate. And now the rest of it clicked on. You can see 120 volts. It reads the battery as basically full, which it's pretty close. I mean, it's not 100% full, but it's, 80th, 90th percentile for sure. So I just took a reading off the battery here. I got 52.8 volts compared to 53.1 right there. The other thing that this did come with is some jumper cables for your PV input. They're about 2 feet long. So, and they've got the nice ferrules on this side, which is nice. You can plug those in and then tie in the rest of your solar panels, which we're going to do right now and see what it does. And they also threw in a set of, besides those jumper cables for the PV input, they sent about 20 feet extra in both the positive and negative. So that's kind of nice too. And I just disconnected these from another system and plugged it into this, running through the 20 extra feet and over and in, and we should get, although there's not a lot of solar coming in right now, and for some reason the display just went off. It should come back on, I assume. Okay, turned right back on, reading 53.2 volts, 1 volt load, and my light was on here, and now it's off, but I think we're good to go. Let's put a little load on this and see how it acts, and then we'll jump through. There are a lot of parameters to go through here, and I took a great deal of time to get it to work with this battery that I've got going here, because it's really meant to be, like I said, tied up to a lot of other communications, which we don't have for this. The default setting on this is actually for SLA, sealed lead acid, and I tried some of the lithium iron phosphate settings, and I kept getting a fault light, which took me a great deal of time to get that resolved, and I just had to go back to its default and put in the parameters that I want. And there are fully 60 parameters to cruise through on this, so it does take some time. Especially if you're not just tying it into something that's talking to it. Let's just scroll through some of the settings here real quick. This one, and like I said, there are 60 of these settings, and I am not extremely familiar with all of them, that's for sure. And I did find it a bit confusing to run through all of these to get this set up and operational. Trying to find the solar, how much solar's coming in. Okay, there we go. The PV light indicates that that's the solar. So we got 76 or 70-ish volts coming in off those solar panels. Right now under these dark conditions, 1.7 amp, 2 amps. I guess that's what it is. Like I said, I'm finding this interface very confusing for me, but a lot of you guys probably would cruise right through this. Let's go up to some more. Temperature, still in the PV. Okay, let's put a load on this. Okay, just for now, I'll just turn on a heat gun on low. Got it plugged in here, and let's turn that on right now. Took it a minute, not a minute, but as you saw, a few seconds before it kicked on. Yeah, this is the part that kind of frustrates me, is cruising through all these various parameters and not knowing exactly where I am. Let's get to where we see the AC. I'm going to look for that AC light to come on. Right there, now it shows inverter. That bottom one reads inverter. That bottom light icon is for inverter. AC out, pulling 6 amps. I believe that on that heat gun. Zero coming in. Now this is, you like I said, you could be tied up to the grid or a generator and you could be pumping power in if you wanted to, but we're not doing that. But there it is, showing 6 amps going out on the heat gun. Yeah. And I'm getting quite warm here, so I'm going to shut that off because that's kind of blowing up right at me. But yeah, this is the part that's been, keeping me way busier than I wanted to on this. There's just a lot of parameters to go through, and but I have to say that I am so used to how the Victron products work that this is all brand new for me. But yeah, it's a little busy for me. And there's our PV input. There at 61 volts, 1.3 amps. I wish it had registered watts so we could see how many watts are coming in. But yeah, so for me, I mean, this is frustrating to go through, but, my eyes are not so good. This is all very small stuff. It's hard for me to keep track of where it is. I mean, I do have my reading glasses on, which helps, and those of you with really good eyes would probably have no difficulty with this, but I have a little trouble navigating this and never quite seeing without real close scrutiny of where I am. But there we are on the PV, 68 volts, says output 1.4 amps. And then, like I said, there's just so many, different things to go through. Input battery, 53.1, output 120 volts, so that's all good. And see on this one, I'm not even sure what that is or what it means. I mean, you have to go to the manual to correspond all of these things, which takes a great deal of time. And this one here, I mean, I still don't know exactly where I'm at or what it's doing, but you just go up. And then programming this, I ran into the same difficulties. I mean, I got it to where It's programmed to charge and discharge and everything okay. And again, I have to just say, I'm sure if you plug that into a server rack style battery, things get a lot easier. But I'm finding it hard to navigate myself, but I'm not that technically savvy like a lot of you guys would be. You just cruise right through this and know exactly what you're looking at. But I mean, I have to get straight on this to look and see. Yeah, so there, that's the inverter again. And like that, I don't know what that 260 is. So I find it a little bit frustrating for myself. I mean, it does work. It was super easy to hook up. There's just not that much to hook up at all. This battery's working fine. I see no issues. In between filming, I've gone and tested every single battery, so all that part of the experiment is looking good. The balancer is working good, and the inverter itself, super easy to hook up, no problems there. This is where I struggle. This is where I struggle, all of this. And then setting and entering everything. So I will say the user manual is quite in-depth of all kinds of information. You're going to definitely want to read through it, get familiar with it. But just jumping to like the setup parameters, I mean, like I said, there's 60 of them. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 62 actually. So 8 pages of parameter settings, and I have spent hours going through this, especially like when I got a fault code. When I initially hooked it up, it took me forever to get that to quit faulting. So yeah, this is a lot for a guy like me. Some of you whippersnappers will have no problem with this. I've had no problems with the inverter whatsoever. It's working just fine. I've pulled heavier loads on this. I've run that heat gun on full. I've tied up other things. Works just fine. And I'll have to say, every time I've learned a new system, it just takes me a little while to learn exactly how it works. I mean, when I went from one charge controller to another over the past few years, there was always a learning curve. This one's a pretty big curve for me, just because there's just so many different things that this can do, which is nice. And the fact that you could tie it into the, your grid panel and come in there. If your batteries got low, this will automatically come on and charge up your batteries. Or like I said, you could tie up a generator and do that as well. So this has a lot of great features, and you can tie up to 6 of these in parallel for much larger systems. And the schematics for tying in another one or another 2 or another 3 are quite extensive in the manual, so you'd want to go over that. But this has a lot of potential that I have yet to explore. And it will take me a month of Sundays to get comfortable with this, I believe. But that's not from the fault of the inverter whatsoever. It's kind of the limitation of what I'm working with here as a battery and my just personal knowledge of these systems. But I do like an all-in-one. I do like the fact that all those components that I am now used to, like over here, I'm so used to all of this. And now it's all in one unit. I've always been interested in one of these. But yeah, there's a big learning curve for me. And I earlier said that I had 3 batteries tied in series. That was a mistake. I've got 4 batteries tied in series, of course, to make a 48-volt battery. That has been working quite well, and it serves the purpose for getting this inverter up and running. And I will keep working on this and learning where I am. Yeah. It's pretty cool. I didn't probably mention it's got some air filters, intake air filters on both sides, as you can see. And then the fan blows out at the bottom, those 2 fans there. When I was running a heavier load, running that heat gun on high, those fans did kick on. They were not very loud at all. Maybe I'll go ahead and turn that on so you can hear. I just clicked the heat gun on high. Takes it a few seconds before it recognizes the load. Now that's the heat gun you're hearing. I might not be able to hear because this is a very quiet when the fans did kick on, but that heat gun's making all that noise you hear right now. Let's go up real quick and see. We can see how much that's pulling. See if I can navigate right to it. So it says 50 amps on the AC. Yeah, I had to toggle through there pretty quick. Yeah, that baby's hot coming up here. Okay. You can just hear that fan, and it just kicked off, but as soon as I turned that gun off, it kicked on. I tried to give you the sound of it. Very quiet, very quiet. And that should change, right? I mean, I just never quite know where I'm at on this. That's the part for me that I've been up here for days and hours, and a few expletives being tossed around. Let's go up and then down. AC output, it's not pulling 50. It says 50 hertz. See, that's the problem with me, is it takes me a while to zoom in and see exactly where I'm at. And like I said, that is not the fault of this unit. That's just some of my own limitations. There we are. So now, okay, 0. Now we're on where it says inverter. Temperature 33 degrees Celsius and 0 load. So let's just try that again now that I know where I'm at. And I apologize for this, you guys. It's just very small for me to see. The inverter's doing okay. Let me kick it on high. There we go. I'll wait for the fan to kick on again and then try and give you a good audible on that. Shouldn't take it too long. Yeah, and it went right off and then down to 0. So yeah, what was that pulling? About 1400 watts, something like that. No problem for this, and it only made the fan run for a couple of seconds. So yeah, I'm gonna keep learning. There's a lot more that I could show you guys on this, and we will over time. So, but my initial impressions are, yeah, it's a great unit. It was super easy to hook up. It would be super easy to tie that into a server rack style. It's got all the right communication ports. Just plug and play, and you'd be up and running. And then a lot of the parameters would be automatic with your lithium iron phosphate battery with the communication ports. So yeah, this is a little bit different of a obviously a little bit different way of going about it, but we got there, and yeah, it's working fine. It really is. A couple of things I do wish that it did did do though, let me scroll through here real quick. I can see, okay, there's PV again. Yeah, I wish I could see a watt display, but that's just my own personal preference. You know, I kind of just measure how the watts are doing on my darker days. We have 400 watts of solar tied into this. We're going to hook it up to a larger solar array. We are using the Calpha solar panels that I reviewed a little while back as well. So, and they're working just quite well as well. So, but we got a couple more we can tie in because this can take a lot more solar. I will keep running this, keep exploring it, and this is just kind of a first part because I've got something else from them to tie into this. So I'll keep bringing myself more up to speed. But yeah, it's a pretty slick little unit and everything's working fine. And I will just show you guys this because I know I've got some eagle eyes out there, but yeah, this is positive and negative coming in. 20 feet extra there, and then the way I've got the jumpers tied in, it looks like they're, you know, going negative to positive. It's just because of the way I had this configured to this other system that it came out like that with the MC4s, but the way I've got that tied in, that right there is positive and that right there is negative. It was just the way that with what I had to work with, it came out looking like I had mismatched, but I know I would get nicked on that by some of you, but it's hooked up correctly. Like I said, I just had to make do with what I've got working over here, and let me tell you, I verify and re-verify before I ever turn anything on. But yeah, everything's hooked up correctly, everything's working good. So anyway, I thought I'd finish with that before you guys got on me about it. Yeah, I was hoping for a really good sunshiny day as well out there, so we could really watch how those batteries were talking to each other as well. That way I've got this turned into a 48 volt battery has been working well for this experiment. The inverter's just working just fine. So yeah, we're going to keep on it. I'll keep learning. And you guys can maybe tell me some other things that you think about this that need to be shown, and I will do it. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Fun, but kind of an exhausting experiment for me. But you know, the more you play around with these things, like I said, every little system that I've tried to learn, it takes me a little bit while to get used to everything. And I'm so geared up to the blue thing behind me that you know, everything's just right there and real quick. But yeah, there's a lot that this thing can do that, you know, I haven't got into it yet, but I will. Aloha, everybody.